So this extension that I'm going to show next is a bit more complicated than the Hello World or the Trello one I showed earlier. This one's going to connect to the Creative Cloud and allow you to download some assets and then push those assets back up to the cloud when you're done. So you may notice that I'm not starting out here inside of Extension Builder, and that's just to prove the point that you can really use whatever editor you like to use. There's really not that much special about these HTML and JavaScript extensions. There's just the HTML and JavaScript, of course, but there's also this manifest file. And if any of you created Flash extensions, you're going to be familiar with that already. It's pretty much exactly the same except for one new element. Before we had something called Swift Path, now it's called Main Path. So that's really the only change. Right, so you define your manifest, then you point that to your main HTML file. Here's my main HTML file, and from here, this is where everything else gets loaded. So I recommend keeping this guy as minimal as possible and pointing out to JavaScript and CSS from here. And then you also define your HTML elements. So I've got a couple divs here, I've got a container, and I've also got a loading spinner. Also pointing out to some external resources here, and it's finally pointing into my main JavaScript file. This guy's actually kind of a mess, but should give you an idea of some of the things that are happening behind the scenes. So there's a function that uploads a photo, a function that sets up masonry, and masonry is kind of the way to get that cool tiled panorama look of the images. I've also got some extend script here, which is going to be called from that main.js file. And this is the part that interacts with the host application. So I've got code that opens a document, gets current document name, and checks whether the document has been edited or not. Okay, so back inside of Photoshop, let me just show you the demo. So here's the extension open. Here are all the assets I've downloaded from my Creative Cloud account. So if I go over to Creative Cloud, you're going to see these are the exact same images. And I've just pulled all the thumbnails into this panel. And this layout here is from the Masonry plugin. Right, so if I click on one of these thumbnails, it's going to download the real asset and then open it inside of Photoshop. And if I edit one of these photos and save it, it's going to update the image inside of my panel, and it's also going to upload the image to Creative Cloud as well. So if I refresh this page and check that image, you're going to see now that it has a purple blotch up in the upper left-hand corner. So I guess this extension is to demonstrate that you can do kind of more interesting things with these sort of extensions. You can interact with the host application, and you can do some more interesting UIs as well. So that's all I have to demonstrate here. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.